History is a tapestry of lies woven by the survivors. In the official record, William H. Bonney Billy the Kid was a desperate outlaw, a boy with a quick trigger finger and a charming smile who got caught up in the range wars of New Mexico. They say he was small, slight, and unassuming. They say he died in a dark bedroom in 1881, shot through the heart by Sheriff Pat Garrett, but the autopsy reports from that night were burned. The grave in Fort Sumner is empty. The truth is not a story of justice, it is a story of biology gone wrong. To understand the horror, we must understand the vessel. New Mexico in the late 1870s is a landscape of brutal isolation. The Lincoln County War is raging. It is a messy, dirty conflict over beef contracts and dry goods. But while other men fight with Colts and Winchesters, Billy fights with something else. His allies, the regulators, notice the strange details first. They notice that Billy never shivers in the freezing high desert nights. They notice that horses' sensitive, intuitive creatures panic when he walks into the stable. They notice that his wounds, bullet grazes and knife cuts, close up within hours, leaving behind skin that looks tougher, thicker, more like hide than flesh. Billy isn't sick. He is cursed. He is a lycanthrope, but not the romanticized wolfman of Hollywood. He is a biological chimera, a human cage barely containing a prehistoric, predatory instinct. The tension builds throughout the winter of 1878. The kid tries to keep the beast dormant. He drinks heavily to sedate the metabolism that burns through his body. He is charming and polite because he is terrified of what happens when he loses control. But the violence of the frontier does not allow for control. The Murphy-Dolan faction, his enemies, push him too far. They ambush his friends. They corrupt the law. They back him into a corner where humanity is a liability and savagery is the only escape. The omen arrives not with a howl, but with a smell. It is the copper temps of blood in the air during the siege of the McSween House. The house is surrounded. The U.S. cavalry has arrived with a mountain howitzer. The building is burning. The heat is melting the glass in the window frames. In our history, Billy ran out the back door, dodging bullets in a miraculous escape. In this reality, the stress of the fire snaps the last tether of his humanity. Inside the smoke-filled parlor, as the roof begins to groan, Billy Bonney stops screaming. His jaw unhinges. The pop of his collarbone snapping echoes louder than the crackling fire. The kid is gone. The beast is here. The back door of the McSween house does not open. It shatters. It explodes outward in a shower of splintered oak and iron hinges, driven by a force far greater than a desperate human shoulder. Deputy Robert Beckwith is standing just 10 feet away, his Winchester rifle raised, waiting for a silhouette to emerge from the smoke. He expects a terrified 19-year-old boy. What greets him is a nightmare of biology. A mass of scorched fur and muscle, standing nearly 7 feet tall on hind legs, crashes into the night air. The creature that was once Henry McCarty moves with a velocity that the human eye struggles to track. Beckwith fires a single round. The .44 caliber bullet strikes the beast in the shoulder. A hit that would shatter a human clavicle. In this reality, the lead merely flattens against dense, hypercalcified bone and is pushed out by rapidly knitting muscle fiber. The impact is wet and heavy. The creature does not bite Beckwith, it simply runs through him. The deputy is thrown 20 feet backward, his chest cavity collapsed by the kinetic energy of the collision. Before his body hits the dust, the beast is upon the next man, John Kinney. The violence is not theatrical, it is efficient. One swipe of a clawed hand, possessing the hydraulic strength of industrial machinery, separates Kinney's jaw from his skull. Panic ripples through the besieging line. The men of the Murphy-Dolan faction are hardened killers, veterans of Apache raids and barroom brawls. But they possess no frame of reference for this. They scream about bears and devils. Colonel Dudley, commanding the nearby soldiers, orders the troops to open fire, but the discipline collapses. The muzzle flashes strobe in the darkness, illuminating the creature in horrific, fragmented glimpses, a snout dripping with fresh arterial spray, yellow eyes reflecting the firelight with no trace of human recognition. The creature does not linger to fight the entire regiment. It is an ambush predator, not a soldier. With a howl that sounds like the tearing of metal, it breaches the perimeter. It vaults over the adobe walls of the Tunstall store and vanishes into the thick brush along the Rio Bonito. The shooting stops, replaced by the crackling of the burning house and the groans of dying men. The soldiers stand in the silence, their weapons smoking, staring into the dark. They realize that the kid has not escaped. Something else has been released. The siege is over, but the hunt has just begun. For the next 3 years, the territory of New Mexico does not sleep. The Lincoln County War officially ends, but a new, silent war begins. The newspapers in Santa Fe stop reporting on cattle rustling and train robberies. Instead, they print vague, terrified accounts of the beast of the Pecos. The legend of the outlaw fades, replaced by the folklore of the werewolf. Billy does not form a gang. He does not seek political allies. He retreats into the harsh, unforgiving landscape of the Capitan Mountains. He sheds the trappings of civilization. He stops wearing boots. He stops carrying a gun. He doesn't need them. The local ranchers begin to find their livestock slaughtered, not stolen for market, but torn open. the organs consumed with surgical precision. But it isn't just cattle. Bounty hunters who ride into the foothills to claim the price on Billy's head simply vanish. Their horses return to town days later, riderless, their flanks trembling, smelling of musk and predator urine. Enter Pat Garrett. In this timeline, Garrett is not just a lawman, he is a reluctant exterminator. He knew Henry McCarty. He drank with him in the saloons of Fort Sumner. He suspects the truth that polite society refuses to acknowledge. Garrett is elected sheriff of Lincoln County not because he is a good politician, but because he is the only man cold enough to hunt a friend who has ceased to be human. Garrett changes the tactics of the manhunt. He realizes that standard tracking methods are suicide. You cannot track a creature that can smell your fear from a mile away. Garrett stops bringing posses of loud, clumsy deputies. He hires Apache scouts, men who understand the skinwalker myths. They lead him deep into the wilderness, but even they refuse to go past the snow line. They point to the tracks in the mud tracks that shift disturbingly from the imprint of a size 7 boot to the elongated, clawed pad of a werewolf hand. They turn back. Garrett presses on alone. He arms himself not with a standard 6-shooter but with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun loaded with custom slugs-lead bowls cast with silver shavings. A superstition he prays has some basis in reality. The cat-and-mouse game stretches into 1881. It is a psychological siege. Billy taunts him, not with letters, but with displays. Garrett finds carcasses arranged on the trail. He hears the howling at night, a sound that mimics his own name, PAA, at ... pot. The net tightens around Fort Sumner. Billy, driven by the residual human memories of comfort and friendship, returns to the old stronghold. He is drawn to the scent of Pete Maxwell's house, to the memory of human food and warmth. He believes he is the apex predator, invisible and invincible. But he underestimates Garrett's patience. Garrett isn't hunting an outlaw anymore. He is hunting a werewolf, and he knows exactly where the animal goes to feed. The date is July 14, 1881. The temperature in Fort Sumner is stifling, a heavy, suffocating heat that presses down on the adobe buildings. History tells us that Billy entered Pete Maxwell's bedroom in his stocking feet, asking for a piece of beef, and whispered, "Kinnis," into the dark before Pat Garrett shot him through the heart. But in this simulation, the sensory details are different. Billy does not enter as a man. He enters as a hybrid on the verge of a shift. He doesn't ask for beef because he is hungry for meat. He is hungry for the hunt. He enters the room not with the silence of a thief, but with the heavy, clicking breathing of a predator sniffing out a trap. Pat Garrett is sitting on the edge of the bed in the absolute darkness. He is sweating. He grips the 10-gauge shotgun. His knuckles are white. He hears the footsteps too heavy for a human teen. He smells the musk, a scent like wet dog and copper, filling T's small room. "Kinnis," the voice is a growl, vibrating in the lower register, rattling the wash basin on the stand. Garrett doesn't hesitate. He relies on the folklore. He pulls the trigger. The room explodes in a blinding flash of gunpowder and magnesium. The custom slug, packed with silver shavings, slams into the chest of the figure in the doorway. Here is the tactical failure of the Victorian era. They believed in magic. They believed silver was a holy conductor, but biology does not care about superstition. The slug destroys Billy's sternum and pulverizes his left lung, but it does not stop the neural signals. The silver is just metal. It is an irritant, not an exorcism. The chest wound bubbles, black blood foaming as the ribs snap outward to accommodate the expanding chest cavity. The creature roars, a sound that shatters the bedroom window. Garrett tries to cock the second hammer, but he is too slow. The beast covers the 10 feet between the door and the bed in a blur of motion. There is no gunfight. There is only the wet, tearing sound of a massacre. Billy's claws, now the length of Bowie knives, shear through Garrett's wrist, severing the hand holding the gun. The sheriff of Lincoln County screams, a raw, primal sound that is cut short as the creature's jaws clamp over his throat. The legend of the lawman ends not with a eulogy, but with the snapping of cervical vertebrae. Pete Maxwell tries to run. He makes it to the door before the backhand swipe of the monster catches him. The force throws him through the adobe wall, crumbling the mud bricks. Outside, deputies Poe and McKinney hear the carnage. They fire wildly into the darkroom, their bullets thudding uselessly into the walls. They hear the wet thuds of feeding. Then, silence. Suddenly, the side wall of the house explodes outward. The beast of Fort Sumner, bathed in the blood of its enemies, charges into the night. It does not look back. It ignores the bullets of the deputies. It sprints toward the Pecos River, moving with the gait of a creature that has finally shed the last vestige of its humanity. The man is dead. The wild has claimed its own. The sun rose over Fort Sumner on July 15, 1881, illuminating a scene that defied explanation. The official report, filed by Deputy Poe, was a masterpiece of fiction. It claimed that Sheriff Pat Garrett had heroically gunned down the outlaw. It claimed justice had been served. But the locals knew better. They saw the closed caskets. They saw the way the soil over the graves was packed down with heavy stones and blessed by 3 different priests. They noticed that there was no body of Billy the Kid put on public display, only a hastily buried pine box filled with sand and rocks to mimic the weight of a man. Governor Lew Wallace, terrified of the truth, sealed the records. The territory could not handle the knowledge that a biological anomaly had decapitated the law. So, they sold the myth. They sold the dime novels. They turned a monster into a folk hero to hide the fact that the predator was still loose. The creature that was once Billy did not die. It migrated. Over the next century, the American Southwest became a checkerboard of strange disappearances. In the 1920s, prospectors in the Gila Wilderness reported being stalked by a bipedal wolf. In the 1940s, during the nuclear tests at the Trinity site, security patrols vanished without a trace, their jeeps found clawed and overturned. The government labeled them as accidents or desertions. They knew better. They established no-go zones in the deep forests, vast stretches of federal land marked as nature reserves, not to protect the trees, but to cordon off the territory of an apex predator that does not age. Which brings us to 2025. In this timeline, the map of the United States looks the same, but the statistics are different. The number of people who go missing in national parks is 3 times higher than in our reality. We are told to stay on the trails. We are told to carry bear spray. We are told these vast woodlands are ours to explore, but they are not. Somewhere in the deep, freezing timberline of the Rocky Mountains, there is a cave that smells of ancient blood. Inside, resting on a bed of bones that span 3 centuries of American history, sleeps a creature with the eyes of a 19-year-old boy. He remembers the taste of whiskey. He remembers the face of his mother, and he remembers the betrayal of the men who tried to cage him. Billy the Kid never died. He just learned how to hunt better. So the next time you are camping in the deep woods and the forest suddenly goes quiet, don't look for a wolf. Pray that the wind shifts and that the boy from Lincoln County decides you aren't worth the chase. This concludes the simulation.